Croeso, siamai, hello and welcome to another episode of the Bluebirds Nest, Neath yr Adar Gleision, which, as always, is sponsored by DragonBet. So please take a visit, dragonbet.co.uk, for all of your up-to-date Cymru Premier and some of the other sports betting markets available. Now, on episode 12, we have one of the best left foots in Pembrokeshire, not only as a player, but still to this day as a coach and a member of Haverfordwest County's backroom staff for many years now. It's Mr. Mickey, as we should say, Mickey Ellis. Mickey, welcome to the Bluebirds Nest.
Hi, Ryan. All right, yeah, pleased to be here.
So, Mick, I want to go back to the beginning of your play-in days before we talk about the current sort of coaching capacity. I know you played for Haverfordwest. You obviously played for both Milford and Pembroke Borough when they were in the Welsh League too. But I know, and you tell us many stories about this, the trophy cabinet is full of Pembrokeshire success as well. So take us through it, if you would. Where have you played, and what did you win in the play-in era?
Well, it goes back, way back now. I can vividly remember most of it, but it's such a long time. It goes back to like 77, 78, 17 years of age. Missed out my era really on junior football because it wasn't like it is today where you have like academies and you've got 12, 14, 16 leagues. It was basically you played rugby in school, and then we did have two local volunteers, like Hughie Phillips and Don Twigg, who ran like an under-12s, under-14 side with Haverfordwest juniors, but there was only no league structure. It was only friendlies arranged through mates, and basically we played every now and again. But what we did as youngsters then, we had teams in streets. So if you lived in a certain street like Augustine Way, Priory Avenue, then you were City Road, all within Haverfordwest town precincts, and we arranged our own games. On a Sunday, we'd play a game of football. We'd pick a side between ourselves, and one of the lads had a strip of blue shirts, another strip of yellow shirts, and if you turned up, you got a game for them, and it was played on the local rifleman field. And every Sunday, it didn't last 90 minutes; it was virtually last all day. And you'd say then, "Oh, I'm going home for lunch, lads," and you were allowed to go home in sort of small batches, so you could bring them. And you came back in the afternoon and say, "What's the score?" Or 17-13, and you carry the same day all day. So basically, we played. We didn't have computers and bikes in those days. Not the dark ages. Don't get me wrong, but we had football boots and a football, and that was our entertainment. And we didn't have computers or or distractions like there are today for the youngsters. It was basically find your own entertainment, and you went home when it either went dark or you were hungry. And like so, we had some great teams, like City Road team, and some of the players in those teams and Priory Avenue either played rugby for Haverfordwest or then continued to play high-level football in Haverfordwest local leagues. Then, so it was really great. And like I say, we were all fit as fiddles because we kept running around. And even when it went dark, we used to knock on we wouldn't so many cars on the road then. We used to knock on people's doors to move the cars so we could play between the street lights in the street. So,
Amazing.
And again, the skill factor came in, and when it was dark or going dark, the ball would bounce off the curb at different angles, and you'd have to adjust your body. And
amazing. That's proper jumpers for golf course type of football, that.
Yeah, exactly. And we used to play then in the avenue headers, throw the ball against the wall and head the ball. And Mark Ashman was a neighbour of mine. Played in goal for Pembroke Borough in the Welsh League, had a trial for Newcastle, and had a very good standard all his playing career. I myself, I got into the Welsh League and all, and I remember Ronnie Rees saying to me once, I scored a header, he crossed the ball, I scored. He said, "Where you bloody hell do you learn a head? Better ball like that." I said, "My alleyway with Mark Ashman." I said,
Amazing.
So good times.
Your junior football then was very much street based.
Yes, yeah.
Going into senior football then, where did you start out?
In 1977, we went down to like a trial for Merlin's Bridge against Lohaden, and Tally John, a local stalwart, said to me, "Oh, you go have a game for Lohaden, And basically, in the first half, I'd scored 2 and made 1. And he said, "Oh, half time, we've had a bit of a think." And he was scratching his head. "You come and play for us now," I said, "and we'll swap over them." Like, yeah. So from an early age, they could see I had some potential. So they encompassed me into the Bluebirds second team as it was then, and then rapidly made progress into the first team and scored a hat-trick in my first game for the first in Saundersfoot. And in those days, it was a tough sort of league where every game you had, it was like 2-1 or 3-2. You know, it was very rarely 14 or 15-0 or 17-0. It was all basically, you know, wherever you went in the Premiership, it was men against men, and you had tough games, even down to Solver, battling against the elements like the wind and the rain. They had a very good side down there. Matthew Raggett and some of the players, Goodwick, Moncton, Tenby, Saundersfoot, they all had very good teams, you know. So, but in those first couple of years, we won the league, won the cup a couple of times, and throughout my career with Bridge, we got to the cup final, I think it was 8 times, and we won 6 times we won it, and 8 league titles through that single club. So that was a very successful period, and I was lucky to come together with a very good team. You know, we had some outstanding players, and it was a pleasure to play with them.
Fair play. That obviously stood you in good stead, and you mentioned those the trophy-laden years, you know,
yes,
and league things. That's phenomenal. Was it only Bridge then in sort of local football you played for?
Yes, mainly Bridge, because at the time, so, you know, with like Haverfordwest and Welsh League, it was more ex-professionals and like senior players, but there wasn't any youth policy at Haverfordwest. Basically, that was I was asked to play then for Pembroke Borough, because they had more of a local sort of base players playing for them, and a couple of experienced players coming to Pembroke Borough. But that was like from 77 to 80 was with Bridge, and then Pembroke Borough, Des Shanklin asked me to go over and sign for Pembroke Borough and have a go at Welsh League, and did that and thoroughly enjoyed it. And you know, it was fantastic games then, like against Swansea at the Vetch. You had Cardiff City, Newport County at Somerton Park, Merthyr Tydfil at Pendarren Park, and it was some, like I say, ex-pros and sort of combination sides you played then, and the experience gained there. It was tough, but it was, you know, very very good quality football. And well, that was from 80 to 84 with Pembroke Borough, and great players down there. The experience we got, like I say, was second to none. It was like training sort of 2-3 times a week, limited facilities, but it was tough because like you didn't have motorways then. You left on a bus at 8 o'clock in the morning, and to get to like someone at Cardiff, you get there about 12, and coming back at 11 o'clock at night then.
Yeah.
And being so far west, it was first on the bus, last off it. You know, we've been brought up with that, and
yeah,
it's a great experience.
Well,
go on.
Sorry, and I think that experience then, as obviously told, going on to coaching capacity then in 98, was it?
Yeah, yeah, it was 98. Barry Vaughan, secretary at the time then, came and knocked on my door, and he said, "Look, in the meantime, I've been managing the interleague side for Pembrokeshire."
Okay, yeah.
And we'd won the interleague sort of cup between sort of Swansea, Carmarthen, Neath, and obviously Pembrokeshire. We'd won that for 7 years, sort of basically on the trot, through good local players and the knowledge of players we played in the Pembrokeshire League. We were a very good side, and it continued then for several years. And then with the prompting of Eddie Oliver, the league secretary at the time, he said, "Look, why don't you do like a coaching course so you can coach youngsters then coming through," which obviously I agreed to. And then that progressed. And at the time as well, like Jimmy Shoulder, Roy Thomas, Mike Rigg was in charge of the FAW Trust at the time, and they brought a whole host of coaches through then, and the new UEFA sort of licensing procedure, which is like the football leaders, the C license, the B license, and then at the top at the time was the A license. But since then they brought in the pro license then for pro managers, but I never actually progressed to that, because it basically for full-time professionals in that game. And so Colin Staples, who was a person you know personally as well, he was in it with us. And Ocean Roberts then progressed with us. He got his A license, and you can see where he's gone today. And he's taken his coaching prowess right to the top.
Yeah, you were obviously one of the first then to gain that A license in Pembrokeshire. You're one of several at the club. There's a number of the staff now with that A license, and a number of staff working towards that A license as well. That's obviously had a significant impact, particularly over the last few years, with your input and many others on local youngsters having opportunities to play, Welsh League, Cymru Leagues, and now obviously the Cymru Premier. That's great for the county on a whole sort of level. It must be, really proud for you to see the impact that not only you, but all A licensed coaches and other coaches are having on local players.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we started off in 2000 after I joined in 98. It took us a year to sort of get established in the Maguirta League. And the Maguirta League then gave us the opportunity for getting youngsters, because obviously it was an opportunity that I missed out on as playing the highest level of football in Wales, locally in West Wales, in Haverfordwest and Pembrokeshire, basically. That's the whole ethos of why I've gone into coaching, because although my era missed out, it was nice to lay the platform for youngsters to play the highest level possible in Pembrokeshire. And we had a team then in the year 2000, which I don't know if you can see it. It was our first Maguirta League team, which it was great. And in that player, you got like Lee Hudgell, who's played over 300 games for the club. Yeah. And obviously there's others, and I got a list here of over 200 players who played locally for Haverfordwest. And I always say it's like a revolving door with youngsters. Sometimes they dip down a bit in form, they go away, but they're always welcome back to keep it. Obviously develop the skills elsewhere, come back stronger, fitter, faster, and come back to the club. And the door's never closed. Like I say, it's always open for players to come back to the club then.
Yeah. That was going to be a question, and I wondered whether you kept a track on all the different local players you've had over the years. And the years that we've known each other and worked alongside each other now, I've heard many stories, like players like Hudgie and people like that who've done well on the big stage. But I think a few stand out for me, and we will come on to sort of your highlights later on. But the two that probably stand out for me is obviously, and I didn't know this, but you mentioned the FA Cup opportunity.
Yes, yeah.
That's the first one, and the second one is obviously when Haverfordwest, the airport story is a phenomenal UEFA Cup story.
Yeah.
So remind us what happened with both of those.
Well, we obviously qualified in 2003, 2004 for the UEFA Cup. Monumental season for the club, fantastic. I was looking at some of the stats today, and that team, we played 32 games. And we'd won 17, drawn 11, lost 4. We finished up third on 62 points. But the highlight of the season really was we only scored 40 goals in 32 league games, but we only conceded 23. And I think we won about 16 games, 1-0 or clean. It was amazing. And the top team that year was Rill, and they scored 77. And TNS, we beat TNS, Rill, all at home that year. And the top 5 team, we all beat them that year. Fantastic year. Anyway, we qualified for Europe, and then obviously we were going to go to Stansted Airport. We left Haverfordwest probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, drove from Haverfordwest to Stansted, and finally got there, all of us exhausted from the journey anyway, just to get to Stansted. So we're having a roll call now, because some of the boys are travelling up by cars, blah, blah, blah. And we phoned up now to find out where Lee Kendall was, our goalkeeper. And we said to Lee, "Where are you?" He said, "Oh, I'm Terminal 1 by the cigarette machine over there, and there's a shop there." Yeah, I can see the cigarette machine, Terminal 1. And ultimately, it sort of sank to Alston. He was in the wrong airport. He was in Luton Airport, not Stansted Airport. So him I think it was Simon Heel, and I think it was A.D. Harris bombing it down the motorway there on the hard shoulder to catch the flight then to get to this one. We were wondering were they going to make it because we'd be without a goalkeeper in Europe then. But thankfully they made it. But what a mess up that was! Like wrong airport, let alone wrong terminal. Yeah.
Incredible tales of that adventure, and the FA Cup one. It still confuses me how this ended up happening. But you've played in the FA Cup.
Yeah, well, when I first joined Haverfordwest, it was in like sort of 84, 85. I think 83 they'd won the old Welsh League. So with that comes the qualifications then for like the FA Cup, and Cliffy Sace, the secretary at the time, entered us into the FA Cup and the FA Vars. Do you remember the FA Vars? It was still going the FA Vars. So we had first round we drew Knighton away, and I ended up playing then. Mickey Lennon was the manager, and he put me up front, and he passed to me, and I scored the actual winner to win 1-0 at Knighton. So on the FA Cup records, it's there. I've scored. M. Ellis has scored there, and nice bit of history there. And also then the FA Vars wasn't so good now. We had a long trip down to Barnstable, and we got delayed on the Severn Bridge, and we were all late for kick-off was 3:00, and we got there. We changed on the bus, and within 20 minutes we were 3-0 down because we didn't have time to warm up. We just straight on the pitch and lost 3-0. But we won the game at Knighton, and in the following game, I think Cheltenham Town we played, and again we got outplayed in that game. We lost 3-0. But it's history then of playing in the FA Cup. Such a nice bit of facts to look back.
Definitely nice for the family photo album, I'm sure, as well.
Yeah.
So coming back then more locally, you obviously played in the Pembrokeshire League yourself and quite successfully.
Yeah.
I've got to ask you thoughts on the current situation in the area. We've mentioned Hakin several times over the last few weeks following their success in the various cups. But this past weekend, it was their, I suppose, arch rivals, Goodwick United, obviously led by a good friend of ours and former manager, Chris O'Sullivan, who came out victorious. I think, it was another former Bluebird, Rhys Darlin, who sealed the 3 points late on for a 3-2 victory down at the Obs. It's set up to be a fascinating season. I know it's early days, and, Hakin, I suppose, have been in the spotlight with their success in the Cups. Goodwick, I know have had a lot of injuries and have sort of just been doing their business quietly, under the radar, just getting on with it. But I think it would be a surprise for me anyway if either of those two teams weren't in the top two come springtime. So I suppose your thoughts on that. But also I want to look elsewhere across the league. Obviously, your own son, Matthew, is the Clarbston Road manager. Ethan, who I know well, is doing some great things with the media for Clarby, obviously the videography and things himself. Has there ever been a conversation to have a family reunion and leave the meadow and head for Clarby?
Not yet, but as I say, never say no. Yeah. But very, very proud of what Matthew's doing, following my footsteps of playing and then going into management, because I do believe that all players should try and put something back into the game if they can. Obviously, it's very demanding with family life today and responsibilities, but far too many players, I think, just throw their boots in the bin and pack up and go and play golf forever. But it's always good and all clubs are short of help in volunteers in any capacity. If anybody can put in like just 10%, that's great. But some people put more in, and it's more taxing on the family time then. But basically, whatever you can do to help in every club is always beneficial and for the club itself.
Yeah, definitely. And outlook on the season, I mentioned, I know it is early days, but what's the sort of ambitions for the season with Matthew and Clarbston Road?
I think they've done very well in the past. They've got to like 2 cup finals, and they've stabilised in the first division. And obviously, it's like a farming community. And Matthew was saying that a lot of the players have got responsibilities on their own farms, so therefore he's got to have a big squad. You can't select his best team every week, so it's tough. But being established now in the first division, I think, and possibly having a good cup run, that's their ambition, and I think he enjoys it. He lives about 4 or 5 miles from Clarkson Road, so he's classed as a local. And Ethan now, his son, my grandson, he's obviously loves the game. He's obviously into the local media, and he's worked with you a couple of times down the Meadow, taking some photographs, and he's like 12, 13 now. So, like, I never started until I was 17, so he's got years to get established in, and he's right-footed, not left-footed. So I've been in the garden with him, kicking the ball with his left foot, but he comes down. Right, so
well, he's certainly got two good role models in front of him to follow in the footsteps of him. And obviously, wish Clarby all the best for the season. We'll be keeping a close eye.
Yeah.
Gonna dive into some of those individuals now, I guess, of what we spoke about and memories. But a couple of quick fire questions for you. Some big decisions to be made. The most gifted player you've seen over the years.
Well, a gifted player, I think these days is somebody with, like, obviously pace and control. And I'm looking purely locally. I would say Lee Hudgell has come through and played the amount of games. A little bit of an injury to his latter part of his career, but he's had the most potential, I think. And he's to come through the juniors and obviously youth. So Lee, to me, has been obviously one of my sort of best players to come through and make it through to the top then, really. So that's yeah. I mean, if you look at professionally around the world, for me, it's Messi is got vision, control, dribbling, scoring, you name it. He's probably the top of the list. Ronaldo close second because he can actually sprint. But locally, to me, Lee Hudgell has been fantastic. You know.
So what are you saying? He's the Pembrokeshire Messi.
Yes, and also still playing today for Merlin's Bridge.
He is, fair play. I've seen a couple of photos on social media really with he's got a lovely winter beard coming on as well, and he's still doing it. Fair play, and obviously he's had a couple of spells at the Bridge Meadow, but I think the highlight for him is obviously the Cymru Premier Team of the Year back. I wouldn't even guess at when about that was, but to feature in that team, you know, to be selected the best 11 from the whole country is some to keep that. So I wouldn't be far behind you selecting from what I'm aware of over the years in Pembrokeshire football. He's right up there with the best of them. Yeah. So, like, on now then, the quickest player you've seen.
The quickest player, again, you know, Lee Hudgell, on his day, he was lightning quick, and when he opened up, even the crowd went, wow, and he didn't even got to the ball yet, and he was just ghosting past players. So locally, I would like to have seen him do like 100 meters against some of the pros, see how fast he really was. Like,
okay, he's 2 from 2 so far then. Okay. Who comes in the most skillful player?
Skillful player, I think something like, back in 2003, Darren Ryan, to me, very skillful, lovely left foot, and he came to us in the latter part of his career, but when he was playing for Barrytown, I think in their heyday, excellent player. And again, looking at the local Welsh League scene, Darren for me is probably the most skillful and silky skills on the ball, you know, and being a left winger myself, is going to be biased towards the left-hand side.
I remember watching him when I was a junior growing up, and he was turning out for Carmarthen at the time, and even then, you know, like you say, in the slightly latter stages of his career, he was still some player. I think he was playing alongside Dean Rossiter at the time at Carmarthen. He had Mark Delaney at full back, and there was quite a strong Pembrokeshire contingent still there. Next one now then, and you can't pick yourself for this one, but the best left foot. And I know, you've mentioned Hudgy, you've worked alongside many a left foot there, but who stands out for you at the top of the pile?
Yeah, well, again, Darren Ryan, because he is in my position, and his silky left foot and the way he struck the ball, it was precision, it was to the feet, and consistency, you know, all the time. He's got everything with that left foot, basically. So Darren Ryan for me on that one.
Okay, any other notable mentions there?
I would say possibly Simon Healer, but that's going back, you know, outstanding for me, Darren Ryan with a shadow. Okay. And again, he's coaching now at Wolves, I believe. So
that's right. Yeah, I've seen that on Twitter and things. He's still in the game, like you say.
Yeah.
All right, flip sides then. The best right foot.
Well, to be honest, of late, Scotcher to me strikes a lovely right foot ball, streams play left and right, and even Corey Shepherd, great right foot, scored a couple of goals from the halfway line, like So at present day, those two have got two good right footers. So
they'd be pleased with both of those shouts. Fair play to
that. That's a pint of mad for them too.
You've seen many a time of people having a hothead on and off the pitch, no doubt, over the years. Who's the biggest hothead?
Oh, got to be Lee Kendall in goal. Bangor City away we played, and the crowd were winding Lee up, and they were throwing coins at Lee, and Lee called the referee over it, and he said, "Ref, they're throwing coins at me." And referee saw it must be the groundsman must have a hole in his pocket, he said, because they wouldn't throw coins, so to shut him up. And then he turned round and they all had cutouts of Lee Kendall's face. We couldn't identify it. They had on like lollipop sticks, and they couldn't identify who was throwing the coins because they all had pictures of Lee Kendall. About 500 people in the crowd at Far Road. That was a memory. That was that season playing Bangor. We used to have excellent games against them, but Lee Kendall, hothead, and AD Harris in midfield. AD Harris used to play for us then. When he tackled somebody, he tackled man, ball, and the referee. He took them all down,
Okay, fair enough. The last of the individuals, then, the best in the air, best header of the ball.
Right, this is going to be sort of an old school and in a current. My best header that was Sean Pemberton, without a shadow. Very rarely missed a header. Scored many goals with his head up front. Underestimated really, because like he started off as a centre forward and then he dropped back to defence. But him and Wyn Thomas for me. Wyn Thomas, central defender, good in the air, scored a few goals over his head. So Sean Pem for me as the best header.
Okay. I'll on to some of these moments then, and no doubt, every season it's seen lots of highs, lots of lows, but your top three in no particular order, what three stand out for you when you eventually one day hang those boots up, when you think, right, those are the three standouts for me?
Yeah. Well, the best for me personally was scoring 2 goals for Pennock Borough, one on each end at the Vetch Field in Swansea. There was obviously the first one was a run down the right by Simon Clark, and he put over a cross, and I rose to the far post and headed it past. I think it was Glan Leathern was in goal. It was Dudley Lewis and Wyndham Evans looking at me as I was heading the ball, and I could see their faces. And Wyndham Evans said, "Oh, we're in trouble here." Bang! Scored a goal. Second half, then Gerald Hicks, who was recently passed away, played a through ball. I ran onto it, and out came Glan. I slid under him, and I was delighted to score 2 goals on the Vetch, which is like a landmark for me. Nice. The second one was obviously the UEFA trip to Iceland, qualifying for Europe in that season. We were drinking champagne on the bus. When I was driving the bus, I had a couple of sips of champagne on the way back, so that was really a highlight, actually qualifying for Europe, because we won 1-0 away up in Carnarvon, and it was like a catalogue of 1-0s all season. So I think Rhys Griffiths scored the goal for us up in Carnarvon, and we virtually, the club's never been in that position before. So that's got to be number 2. And number three then of me, the 3 moments would be the Magwita youth team beating Swansea Youth 4-0 in our first season at home. Whether it was a weakened side or not, the Swansea sent down, but the following season they sent down a strong side and they beat us 6-0. So they treated us with due respect then. So that was one of my 3 highlights I'd like, because we've never had a youth team before at that level. And it was nice to say we are competing and we're there to stay then.
Excellent. And no doubt I've posed this question before this episode, that it must have been tricky for you to narrow it down. I was thinking, obviously, Aberdeen potentially to be in the mix, and obviously Europe stands out for me. But okay, coming on to now, and I've changed this question specifically for you. Normally we ask for a dream team of 5-a-side players, but I think there's been so many over the years that you've had involvement with. So I've upped it best 11 now then. Any formation you want, best 11 to play for the club.
Yeah. Well, to me, going back over the years and playing with some and being involved with the club and part of the management team, for me, it's Lee Kendall in goal. Obviously, the clean sheets and the season we had in 2003. Jazz Richards in the back. I've been where he's come from and a professional player. You know, when he's playing, you can see the class and the experience he's got. He's oozing confidence. So again, going back again a few years, Nigel Stevenson, Welsh international, played for the club, helped manage the club. Wyn Thomas at centre back, Sean Pemberton in the back four or back three sort of thing. Midfield and Nicky Palmer. In his day, Nicky Palmer would run all day, box to box, winning the ball back, passing it. Can't head a ball though, but he basically
He can't go on.
He's a workhorse for me. Nicky Palmer is a must. Lee Hudgell, who I mentioned before, coming through the youth system, giving you balance on the left-hand side. Rhys Griffiths up top, although he didn't score many goals for us later on, he won many league titles and top goal scorer after he left us. But potentially, if he'd have stayed with us, he could have reached the same level as he got to. Darren Ryan, who I mentioned before, as a midfield player. Lee Trundle played for the club, experience, quality, scores, bundles of goals. And Alan Curtis went down the club, bundle of experience. So you got experience, youth, and a good balanced side, good spinal side, being a goalkeeper, centre half, midfield player, and a striker, and plenty of width with Darren Ryan and Lee Hudgell, and so again, balance on both sides. So I could go on. Well, I could go on, but like a couple of subs, but basically that's the 11 I choose anyway.
Gotcha. Well, I have no idea what formation they're all going to line up in, but that's some starting team, that is.
Yeah, there's some names there.
You mentioned Alan Curtis there, Mick. Did you play alongside him?
No, he was playing for the club probably when Ray Davis was in charge of the club. Obviously, I've made a list of managers. I'm up to 14 managers and about 6 chairmen. It's looking back, the ex-Welsh internationals that have played for the club, and as far as I know, they've all enjoyed playing for the football club, and they've all got fond memories of the club. I've spoken to them over the years, and they all look back and say how the club's doing, and they've got a fond memory of being down here.
Yeah. Okay, then let's come to the present day then. This weekend, obviously, the Bluebirds 1899 members prediction game is back. So members, please check your emails for the link to fill in this weekend's prediction. Dan Salmon, I believe, is still sitting top on 9 points with a chasing pack just behind of fellow members in that predictions game. So keep an eye this week's email. For us, off the back of a disappointing result last time out against Aber up at Park Avenue last Friday, we're at home to Bala this weekend. A 2:30 p.m. kickoff at the Oggy Bridge Meadow, where we will be supporting Show Racism the Red Card. So we're looking to raise awareness and challenge racism in football and society this weekend. So there'll be a lot of coverage of that across the social media and at the game on Saturday. Mick, on that then, it's been a tough few weeks for the club. Obviously, 2 cup exits, albeit the last minute, injury time winner at Sir Thomas, penalties at Taftswell, a number of league results now gone against us by the odd goal. What's your mindset like? What are your thoughts on the season so far?
Again, we've had a lot of changes. Any team who brings in like 6 or 7 new players, a team needs to settle down. It takes probably 10, 12 games for a team to sort of gel and players to learn the foibles of what's good and what's bad of each player. And I think that's the period we're going through. It's the fact that we've had several changes, new faces coming in, old faces going out, and I've seen it year after year that when you do a lot of changes, it takes. I mean, you'll have spikes, you'll have a good result, and then it dips off. You don't get consistency, and if we can get all the players back who we've had injured, and as you know, we've had a lot of injuries to key players. Therefore, once those players get back, and then we've got to pick a regular team consistently. Tony's had a massive job, and the injuries we've had to key players, it's still existing now. That players are coming back and not fully fit, so they've got to get fit while the season is obviously taking place. We've got a small squad, and that's where it's evident that with these players coming in and going out, we're not getting the consistency. I think if we get all players available and fully fit, we can compete in this league. But it's the odd goal, 1-0, 2-1s. We're not being overawed by many teams. It's basically putting the ball in the back of net on with the chances created. If we'd have done that, we could have got not a maximum points, but we could have got at least another 4 or 5 points, and we'd have been higher up the league. So we're not out of contention. A couple of wins, which we can get, and we'll be up to mid-table, touching the top 6. But I would say that, to me, that's our level at the moment, sort of middle of the table, top 6, if we can maintain it.
Yeah, and like you say, it's those small margins in the final third. Losses become draws, if not wins, if those chances are going our way with a bit of lady luck. I've got to mention then, so with those injuries have come a lot of opportunities for some local youngsters to come through from the development. Any standout individuals for you to have these opportunities?
Yeah, well, like Yori Humphreys has done very well. He's learning on the fast straight drill. He's having to come in and do a job. Harry's done very well. He's shown coming through the youth system, and obviously potential is there for him to go and establish either a full-time career or even a career with us. He's doing very well. So those two to me are standouts coming through from the youth.
Excellent. It bodes well for the future, certainly, and the impact again that the coaches at the club, in the academy, and across Pembrokeshire are having. Obviously, with Harry in particular, I know, having turned out a Pembrokeshire League for Goodwick United last season as well. So, yeah, the pathway is there for players to improve. Now, Mick, before we finished, I haven't told you about this yet. I've got a bit of a surprise for you, somewhat. It's and for everybody else, I suppose, it's a big announcement for the club. We've been a bit sneaky. There's been a refurbishment, obviously, in the clubhouse over the last couple of months now in pre-season. There's a lot of new painted white walls are looking fresh, etc. And the decision has been made to start adding plaques of certain individuals to what potentially would be a club wall of fame. They're going to need a big wall, I know that's for sure, with the amount of inductees that are potentially on the list. But I'm privileged, I suppose, drumroll please, to announce the first 3 inductees to the Wall of Fame is voted by members of the club community to begin with. Delighted to say, Mick, you're one of the first 3 going up on the wall this weekend. You're alongside Wolvesy and Sean Pems, who have been informed of this. So it's going to be a bit of a reunion this Saturday in the clubhouse. Thoughts on being in the Wall of Fame?
Oh, excellent. That's being a member of the club like that, it's fantastic. It goes back to my father, who played in goal for the club, myself, my uncle Kenny, who ran the tote and kept the club going for many years. But that there's a tradition that and having this award is very exciting, and I look forward to this Saturday. Then it's even more nice to add to hopefully a 2-1 win.
Well, like I said, it's a very much deserved accomplishment for you to be up, like I said, alongside Wolvesy and Pems on that wall. The first 3 of many going up on the Wall of Fame. Anyone wanting to witness this occasion, encouraged to be at the club for the game. Obviously, come down and see us turn out against Bala this weekend, but it'll be in the clubhouse after the match where this presentation will take place. I'm really looking forward to Mick. Obviously, it bodes well for me with some good video footage to be collected over the course of the season for the documentary and that. But Thank you for your time. Really appreciate your time and sort of walk down memory lane. And I'm sure on behalf of current and many previous players, supporters, and the wider community of football and sport in Pembrokeshire, thank you for your determination and your volunteering over a number of years in the sporting community. So thank you from them too as well.
Okay, thanks, right? No problem.